Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm pleased to call to order the meeting of the directors of USA Niagara Development Corporation for Thursday, January 30th, 2020. Please note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. The directors have received the relevant information and written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. We welcome public comment on the items on the following agenda. After each item is presented and any comments are received from the directors, we will allow members of the public to provide comments. Speakers may represent themselves and speak for up to 2 minutes each, and those representing groups may speak up to 4 minutes, with one speaker per group. Speakers' comments may only address items considered at today's meeting. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on today's agenda.
No.
There are none. The foregoing have been noted for the record. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of June 26, 2019. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Nanula, seconded by Mr. Williamson. Are there any questions? We already moved. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. Anthony Villardo will present a request for, among other things, authorization to approve a grant related to the 531 3rd Street Mixed-Use Historic Rehabilitation Project.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Before I get into this, I'd like to welcome our newly elected mayor of the city of Niagara Falls, the Honorable Robert Rustino. Thank you for being with us today, sir.
Welcome.
Directors, thank you for being with us. The first item that we are asking for your approval today is an approval for a grant for 531 3rd Street is a mixed-use historic rehabilitation project. A total project cost of approximately $673,000 to restore a 17,000 square foot mixed-use 3-story building on 3rd Street in downtown Niagara Falls. This project is eligible for inclusion in the state and national registers of historic places. The undertaking the project is 531 3rd Street LLC. This is a newly formed company whose sole purpose is to operate the property at 531 3rd Street. Its majority owner is Mr. Robert Nucciarino, who is the founding principal of Arista Real Estate and Development. 531 3rd Street LLC accepted an incentive proposal from USA Niagara on November 29th, 2017 for $60,000. The Niagara Economic Development Fund will be the source of these funds, and no corporation money is used in the project.
Are there any questions or comments from the directors regarding this project? No, I'm just glad to see that it's done.
It's done, and as I mentioned to the directors on the phone and anyone else here, at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we are going to go and cut the ribbon on the project. Hope you can join us.
Are there any comments or questions from the public? If not, I please like to have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Williamson,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Nanula. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for the motion. Carries. Anthony, please present the next agenda item, a request for, among other things, authorization to designate a preferred developer for the 500 and 512 3rd Street projects.
Thank you, Chairwoman. The second item that we are requesting your approval for is designating TM Montante Development, the preferred developer for 512 3rd Street, along with 518 3rd Street, which is a vacant lot and adjacent parking lot at 503 Main Street. On August 18th of 2018, this board approved the acquisition of properties along with several other properties as part of the Strategic Land Acquisition Program funded through the second phase of Governor Andrew Cuomo's Buffalo Billion Economic Development Initiative. The program is intended to assemble long-dormant properties near the Niagara Falls State Park to remove blight for the downtown area and expand the density of uses there. USA Niagara advertised a request for proposal on July 15th of 2019, and we received proposals on October 11th of 2019. A committee determined that the proposal submitted by TM Montante Development would best meet the evaluation criteria as stated in the RFP and was the best value option for the purpose of providing the restoration and rehabilitation of these properties. TM Montante Development has recently completed an exciting project at 616 Niagara Street, which was the rehabilitation of 3 historic registry eligible buildings. The two properties we're talking about here are the former Imperial Garage or Club Exit or Club Malibu, depending on your vintage, and the original Niagara Mohawk building, Niagara Hudson Company building at the corner of Ferry and 3rd Streets. They have set out some nice plans for those. They're actively seeking tenancy for those properties, and they believe that by us naming them the preferred developer, that assists in their ability to lease out those buildings.
As you might recall, those are the former Joseph Anderson properties that we purchased, and I'm glad to see that TM Montanti is willing to undertake the rehabilitation of them. Mayor, do you have any questions or concerns?
No, I'm excited at the opportunity.
And they did a great job with 616.
Yes.
And I think they'll do the same with this, so look forward to them doing a good job.
I was in the truck building last week or a week before, and it was the first time I had an opportunity to go in there. I don't know if you've seen it, Paul.
I was in there today.
I will tell you, what a nice job they did with rehabilitating that building into what's very current, in today's, and you would appreciate that probably more than anybody, the interior of the building and the opportunity it presents. It's really very nice. I didn't get a chance to see the apartments. I've only seen photos of them, but they've done a really nice job.
They've had some
with
open
it.
houses, and
Yeah.
they've conveyed to us that they have a robust interest in those spaces.
Yeah, I don't know what the rental, do you know if they've rented those spaces or?
They're not, they were targeting February 1st is to be able to start moving.
To start.
To start moving folks in. They were,
Right.
they had to make sure they got the commercial space ready for the Global Tourism Institute, and then they were gonna do the finishes on the second floor. So they had one that they had completed in late December, and they were kind of using it as their showcase apartment, their model apartment, thank you, as they finished the others.
Right. Well, I think they've done a great job, and if the directors have any questions, certainly entertain them, or from the public.
My name is Sean Weber. I would just
Yes.
hope that whatever you can do to expedite these things, to get them done as quickly as possible, because time kills. Especially, we've had a very rough year with the parkway closed, and it's been a challenge. So the more activity we can get going, the faster the better.
And our office recognized that, which is why we selected the properties on 3rd Street to be the first made available publicly through a request for proposal process to make sure that they weren't dormant and having a negative impact on the surrounding business community.
What is their time frame or their?
Their timeframe, as soon as we are able to enter into a development agreement, we'll close on the sale of the properties, and they're looking to start renovations soon thereafter.
Okay. Any other questions? May I have a motion for approval?
Well, I guess just the
Oh, no,
only
of course.
question,
Paul.
can you dictate the time frame?
We can, to a certain extent, obviously that's always going to be beholden to private sector interest in, tenanting those spaces. They have to make sure that they have bankable projects, but they have a proven track record in producing a quality rehabilitation project in Niagara Falls. So we're confident in their ability to pull this off.
What was their time frame for the 616?
About 18 months.
I think
I have
that's
a quick
reasonable.
question too.
Yes.
Will there be any public parking available from that project?
Would
for
you
the
identify
street?
yourself?
Yeah, Mike Santa Maria. I'm with Arista, the
Okay.
project on 3rd Street. Sorry for being late. I went to City Hall.
No, that's okay.
An accident, but I was wondering if there'd be any, with the Montante project across the street, if there's any public parking would be available for the street?
There's no public parking
with
associated with that
at all?
project. Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? May I entertain a motion for approval, please? Mr. Nanula? Mr. Williamson? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Thank you. The motion carries. Anthony now will present the next agenda item relating to a request for authorization to enter into a contract for consulting services.
Thank you, Chairman, Directors. On July 18th of 2017, the USA Niagara Development Corporation Board of Directors authorized our agency to enter into a public agreement with the New York State Department of Transportation to fund up to a $300,000 study to focus on traffic and transportation in the downtown Niagara Falls tourism-oriented core. We have went out to RFP for services to conduct this study, and we have selected through a matrix WSP to conduct this study. Through its dedicated Highway and Bridge Trust Fund, NISDOT has agreed to provide USAN a $300,000 grant for the study. These funds will reimburse USAN for its direct consultant expenses in advance of the study. The total project cost for USAN will not exceed the $300,000 grant. This is something that we've heard a concern from a lot of businesses, especially on those peak days throughout the peak of tourist season, and it's something that we are looking forward to address with our partners in the city.
Any questions or comments from the directors? I think it's needed. Maybe a long time in coming, whatever.
One of the production that we'll get from this will give us projects that we can undertake in the immediate, in the near term, and the long term, irrespective of financing. We'll worry about those when the time arises.
Is this looking for rerouting
It's looking at everything.
traffic?
It's looking at, does it make sense to use variable messaging on highways? How do we pull those partners together? We will have a robust stakeholder outreach on this. It could look at, fiscal improvements. So.
Any comments from the public? If not, may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Mr. Williamson, seconded by Mr. Nanula. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Anthony will now present to the directors, and there will be no votes taken on this, a report, an information report for our benefit and for an update on all that we've been involved with. Anthony?
Thank you, Chairwoman and Directors. I appreciate the opportunity to update you on projects which we at USAN are currently working. First, Cataract Commons. All the concrete hardscape has been poured and the deck is currently being constructed. Fabrication of the custom metalwork components are slated to be completed this week. The marquee, which you'll remember, is to pay homage to the Cataract Theater. And planters will be assembled in the coming weeks, and landscaping and planting will take place as soon as the weather allows. We're tentatively looking for a May ribbon cutting, and we're hoping you'll be able to join us for that. On the Robert Moses North Section Parkway removal from Finley Drive to Whirlpool Street is now south of Ontario, has been reopened to all traffic. If you've not driven it yet, I highly encourage you to do so. It is absolutely gorgeous. It really opens up the waterfront to the rest of the city. Utility work is still ongoing between Ontario and Chasm, as well as the reconstruction of all road work in that corridor. That is slated to be completed by the end of the summer. All pavement of the former Robert Moses Parkway has been demolished, and work will progress north during the spring and summer. The Hotel Niagara. This morning, we were happy to host Ed Riley here. We brought him over to introduce him to Mayor Rustino. I'd like to thank Chairwoman Del Monte for joining us on the ceremonial groundbreaking, which was held on December 16th. We continue our bi-weekly discussions with Brian Wells. They've executed on their historic tax credits and their letter of intent with Marriott, and their financing is in place, and they remain on track for a first quarter mobilization of construction. This is going to be about a 12-month construction time frame. Their time frame has been shortened because of the amount of abatement work that was done by a previous owner. Our development strategy, this ties directly into the projects we acquired during the Strategic Land Acquisition Program. As you're aware, we issued an RFP for assistance from urban design and economic analysis firms to assist us with our work in repurposing these properties through the SLAP program. We received 15 proposals and have narrowed that list down to 4, and we're going to begin interviewing teams next week on that. So that's going to help give us direction. It's also going to give us updated market analysis. The last time this agency has undertaken updated market analysis was 2010. Those numbers are now stale. We need to be able to go out and sell to the private sector, what the opportunity for them is here. Also, on the Strategic Land Acquisition Program, this morning, we had a pre-bid meeting for demolition services. In May of this year, we issued an RFP for engineering services to draw up construction documents for the former Snow Hill on the block of land between 1st and 2nd, Main and Niagara Streets, along with the roadway in. LaBelle Associates was the low bidder for that contract, and they finalized their demolition documents. We posted a notice to bidders and are expecting bids to come back on February 19th. We're looking forward to having substantial completion of those done by the start of tourism season. That was something that was very important to us, that we don't have these blighted structures up when we're welcoming the millions of visitors we receive in the summer. Lastly, the Rainbow Center. This has been a new development since our last meeting. As you know, we are no longer under an agreement with Uniland for the repurposement of the Rainbow Center. Tomorrow, we are receiving proposals from design and engineering firms for the repurposing of the Rainbow Center. In order to expedite that process, we used the New York State pre-qualification list. We anticipate a strong response. It was our decision, we've discussed this, to undertake this as a public improvement project. We will partner with the city on repurposing this building. However, the context has changed from when the initial agreement was underway with Uniland, that we've now purchased all of these properties around it. And the Rainbow Center offers a unique opportunity to create additional commercial space. However, it can still serve as utility for ongoing development in adjacent properties around it. So with that, I will entertain any questions that you might have.
Mayor, anybody?
No. I met Mr. Riley today, and I have to say, he's really an impressive man. I'm looking forward to that project getting, going forward. We had a great conversation. He's a good guy.
I think we'll all feel a little relieved when we start seeing some construction going on there, actual work. And not ribbon cutting, groundbreaking. I couldn't think of the other term. There's a lot of excitement there for it, so we're all looking forward to that happening. Do any of the other board members have questions or?
No, just I
comments
hope
about-
that demolition takes place as soon as possible.
It's in the pre-bid documents, Rob, by May 15th, correct? They have to have substantial completion by May 15th.
And just a note on, now that that corridor is open on the parkway, I hope the maintenance, the grass cutting and the maintenance, I hope the state keeps it up better than they have this end of the parkway over the last couple of years. It's embarrassing. It's horrible at times to be driving in July and you can't even see the other side of the highway because of the grass. It's not trees, it's grass. Cut it.
And those are concerns we will be sure to relay to our partners at the New York State Department of Transportation, who maintains that on the NYPA's behalf. Or NYPA's still on Parks' behalf. Parks' behalf.
That's interesting because, their approach in the past has been to naturalize. That's natural.
Put rocks out there.
That's what it's
And before
considered,
cut the grass.
naturalized. And I'm completely agree with you, Michael, because that approach doesn't appeal to me either.
I've driven
I know.
with friends out from out of town, and it's like unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, well, they're gonna cut it next week.
Director Williamson, a quick note on demolition. So we're expecting to bring a contract in front of the board first thing in March at our next board meeting to authorize demolition to start. So,
Our
the
March,
next day, we're hoping that we're planning on having them on site and swinging.
so our March
hammers.
board meeting might be a little earlier in the month than this, so we can get moving on those contracts.
Good.
Going back to Michael's initial concern, when the DOT was proposing, having this massive changeover so that there's greater access, what were their thoughts for their design proposal for the landscape, for lack of a better term?
Well, there's a whole set of trails, there's a multi-purpose trail and the whole
Okay.
landscaping scheme, because that will be maintained by state parks going into the future. Originally, that was part of the highway right-of-way, as you said, DOT maintained it on behalf of parks, but now that it's no longer a highway, Whirlpool Street is a city street.
Yeah, right.
So that what you're driving is a city street. There is no more parkway there. So what will be remaining will be parkland. So you'll have meadow, and it'll look a lot like what you see on the upper river where they did the riverway along the river with the trails and things like that, and little meadows and patches of various types of plantings and things like that. There'll be grasses, there'll be meadows, there's be a big great lawn that runs almost 2 football fields from Orchard Parkway up to,
Division,
yeah,
Lincoln?
he knows the cross streets better than I do. Be a great gathering space. It's gonna be a park, that's what it is.
Yeah, there won't be
Well,
a
that makes me
meeting in
feel
there.
better.
Yeah, it's gonna be a park.
I was with them earlier
It'll-
this week. They're
makes
it's
me
right on their
feel-
radar
Yeah,
screen.
I mean, it's sometimes I'm like wondering whether we should start looking at how we name these things, because we had Niagara Falls State Park, then a stretch of highway, then Whirlpool State Park into Deval Woods. It's gonna be one continuous park, all connected. You won't be able to tell when one ends and when the next begins. It's gonna be a great asset.
Right.
If we remove the northern portion, and I know the chair is
Well,
not
you
interested
can
in
have
doing
our-
that. But I'm just saying.
I'd like to be able to get to the gorge room without traversing that highway in the mornings.
Me and you.
If there's no other questions, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I make one comment?
Yes, of course you can.
Just on, when they're doing these analysis on the redevelopment, at some point, someone's gotta take a hard look at the number of tourists coming. There was an article in the paper a few weeks ago saying they're gonna break records at 9.5 million. Completely ridiculous number. It's impossible we get 9.5 million people. We've been using these numbers for years. It was 8, now it's 9, next year it'll probably be 11. There's no basis of it. The city couldn't handle it, there's not enough bathrooms, there's not enough, it's a completely fictitious number. Made in the Mist does about 1.6 million riders. Figure half go on the boat, then it'd be at 3.2 million. If it's more than half, it would be a smaller number. So someone's got to zero in on getting that realistic number, because if we had 9 million people, believe me, we probably wouldn't even need USA Niagara, because every store would be filled, every, hotels be built, and we just keep repeating that number over and over and over again. Believe me, I want it to be 90. No one wants to be 9 million more than I do, but it's something we really have to look at.
Yeah, it's something we looked at in 2010. As part of those market analyses and going through all those numbers, the 9 million numbers are visitors, are attendees. Might be you 3 times in one day getting counted 3 times. No. Let me finish. Can I finish? Can I finish? What we focused on and what we think we did is a methodology in that 2010 work to identify what's important. That's overnight visitors. Overnight visitors that can be documented through hotel stays. That can be documented. And if you look at some of that 2010 work, we did document, it's at 9 million. But the market analysis themselves says the 9 million number isn't really important, because where you make the money, as you said, I'm agreeing with you, it's the overnight stays.
Right.
So the more hotel rooms you put on the market, the more hotel rooms that get that type of visitation, even with, when I started working here, the vacancy rate was, or the occupancy rate was somewhere around the low 40s before USA Niagara, and after we did all the work over the last year, it's in anywhere from the 62.5. We were like getting towards mid-60s, which is investment grade. And that's when you see the restaurant visitation, and you know that, Sean. That's when you see, when you have the hotel visitors that you could talk into. So it's really, to argue over the 9 million is really inconsequential. What you really should be just focusing on increasing the number of overnight visitors, and that's what we've been trying to measure.
And one of the reasons I bring this up is because over the years, I've met with politicians, I won't go through the names, there's 1 or 2 of them here, that tell me, well, Niagara Falls.
2 of us in the room.
Former and current.
No, and they've said to me, well, Niagara Falls gets 8 or 9 million people, and they don't take advantage of it. So they put the onus back on us, saying, we don't take advantage of the people that we don't even get. So that's why I think it's important to zero in on that number.
I still have a motion out there for adjournment.
I move.
Thank you. I don't know if I can accept it, Mayor.
Oh.
Because I can only take it from the board. I'm sorry.
So moved.
So, Mr. Williamson and Mr. Nanula, I know it's only 2:30 and 3 o'clock, we do have this ribbon cutting. If the board members can possibly spare some time.
We'd love to have
It'd be nice to have everybody there. But thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the public. Grateful for you being here, and that's it. Right now, at least.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.